gave the opposite to al-kalim al-khabith, which is the tree of hypocrisy, as the Prophet ﷺ called it, a person that jumps inside and outside of iman. La ilaha ula wa la ilaha ula. You know, they're never really here, they're never really there. And this is a sign of the Day of Judgment that the Prophet ﷺ said, a person will go to sleep a mu'min wa yumsi kafira, and then he'll wake up a disbeliever. Or he'll wake up a believer and he'll go to sleep a disbeliever. So instead of maintaining some firm iman and, you know, not being at the same point all the time, you know, he's just constantly jumping in and out of iman. And the Prophet ﷺ, he warned us about this. He said, and in a very profound hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ says, "Inna li kulli shay'in shirra." You know, everything has its high peak. Everything has its peak. Everything has its point of maximum production. You know, everything has its high. You know, so for example, there are certain fruits that have their peak production. And so your iman at the same time, your iman in Ramadan is not like your iman outside of Ramadan. And just like we find the famous narration with Hanbala radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he said, Nafaqa Hanbala, and he went to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu and he told him that I became a hypocrite. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, why? He said, because when we're with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our iman is through the roof. You know, we're not thinking about anything else. All we're thinking about is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then when we go back to our homes, you know, our families come to us, and so we get overwhelmed with the dunya. So Abu Bakr started to claim nifaq as well. He said, I'm a hypocrite as well. But see, they weren't jumping from iman to kufr. They had their high points in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. There's no way that your iman in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ will be like your iman outside of the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. But at the same time, what they were accusing themselves of was that because their iman was not at the same level, there was something wrong. So in the end of times, a person will have iman and then something happens to him and then he has no iman whatsoever. So he jumps inside and outside of iman. And of course, you don't know in which situation you're going to die then, and that's the fear, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might take your life when you're outside of iman, and that's what we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from, and so that's what Allah azza wa jalla describes that tree as, اجتثت من فوق الأرض ما لها من قرار. Right? That tree, when it's hit with anything, it completely is uprooted. You know, the tree is completely uprooted. It doesn't matter how long the branches were, ما لها من قرار. It didn't have any foundation, and so it completely came out and was ripped out of the ground. You can't plant that tree once again, you have to start over again. And so that's the danger here.
アンナが良い言葉を良い木に例えられたように、また一方で悪い言葉を悪い木に例えられております。それはいわば信仰をある時は持っていながら信仰から出たり入ったりするような人のこと。ですので、ある時はまた預言者ムハンマド様の言葉にありますけれども、アレイヒスサラトワッサラム、朝起きた時には信徒として目覚めておきながら、日が暮れる頃には不信徒となってしまうような人たちが、審判の日が近づくと数多く現れるようになるでしょうと。そのように信仰を行ったり来たりするような人、それがいわば最悪のケースなわけですけれども、預言者ムハンマド様のお言葉に、全てのものにはアレイヒスサラトワッサラム、全てのものにはその頂点がありますというものがありますが、例えばある果物一つを取ってみても、その最高の年間を通じて最大の生産量を、誇る時期というのがあれば、そうでない時もあるというように、例えばここでサハーバの一つのエピソードをご紹介するならば、皆さんもよくご存知のハンザラ様がある時このような苦情を訴えました。私が預言者ムハンマド様と共にいるときはアレイヒスサラトワッサラム、常にアンナのことを考え、常にアンナのことを思って、もう信仰で私の心は満ち満ちているわけですけれども、ひとたび家族のもとに帰ってしまうと、家族のことに気を取られて、その状態ではなくなってしまう。つまりもう私はダメです。私は偽善者になってしまいましたということをアブバクル様に伝えたところ、アブバクル様も非常にソフトで感じやすい人でしたから、その話を聞いて、それを言うならば私もその通りだということで、2人して預言者ムハンマド様のもとに苦情を訴えに行ったところ、アレイヒスサラトワッサラムというエピソードがございましたが、 彼らの状態というのは決して信仰の外に出るようなことはなかったわけで、信仰のその最高点からまたそうでないレベルには行ったかもしれませんけれども、決して外に出ることはなかったと。注意すべきは、我々が心して注意すべきは信仰の外に出てしまう。中には皆さんもご存知の通り、中には何か自分が乗り越えられない困難に出くわすことでもうダメだと、もう嫌だと投げやりになって、それこそ信仰を投げ捨ててしまうような人もあると。それこそは避けなければならない、注意せなければならないことであるわけです。
And so, when you look at the rest of that hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ شِرَّةً وَلِكُلِّ شِرَّةٍ فَتْرَةً فَمَنْ كَانَتْ فَتْرَتُهُ إِلَى سُنَّتِي فَقَدْ اهْتَدَى وَمَنْ كَانَتْ إِلَى غَيْرِ ذَلِكَ فَقَدْ هَلَكَ. And in another narration, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that he has completely lost. So the point is, the Prophet ﷺ said, everything has its high point and everything has its low point, when you really feel low. And the Prophet ﷺ, he emphasized the low point. فَمَنْ كَانَتْ فَتْرَتُهُ إِلَى سُنَّتِي, that his low point is in accordance with my sunnah, then he will be guided. And if it's in accordance with anything else, then he will completely be destroyed and he will completely perish. Now notice the Prophet ﷺ emphasized the fatra and not the shirra. Why? Because it's very easy, when you're in Ramadan to pray Taraweeh. It's very easy when you're feeling good and when everything is good in life and you just got married or whatever it is, or you just got a new job, to go into and to make a lot of dua or to read a lot of Quran. It's very easy to do it at those points. But the fatra is where your true iman shows, is where whether or not the foundation is firm will show or not when you're at your low point. And so the fatra of the believer is accompanied by three things. The ulama say it's accompanied by three things. Number one, he never lets go of his fara'id. He never lets go of his mandatory things. It doesn't matter if I don't feel like it right now, if I don't feel close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salah is here, I have to pray. Maybe I'm not feeling great right now, maybe I'm not going to be able to pray sunnahs and qiyamul layl, but at the same time, salah is fard. And salah is there, and I have to pray my prayer on time. Right? It doesn't matter if I'm feeling good or not, I have to fast Ramadan. I have to do the mandatory things. So that's the first thing. And a lot of times, one of the problems is that we treat religion differently than the way we treat dunya. What that means is, can you imagine if you only went to work when you felt like it? You woke up in the morning and you said, you know what, I don't feel like going to work today, I'm just going to stay home today. Then you'd have no money, right? You'd be completely bankrupt. No one would make a living that way. You go to work still at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whatever it is, even if you don't feel like it, because you have to make a living from a worldly perspective. So from a spiritually perspective, even if I'm not feeling driven towards my salah, I have to do the maktuba. I have to do that which is fard. I can't leave that. So that's number one. The second thing is that he leaves haram. Ijtinab al-haram. Particularly al-kaba'ir, the major sins. Particularly those. What that means is that you'll find many times people that are very, very, very enthusiastic about the faith, very enthusiastic one day, young people in particular, right? And then, they're praying one day and they're all in and mashallah growing a beard and wearing thawb and all kinds of things, and then 1 week later they're drinking alcohol, right? Or now you have a girlfriend, or now you have a boyfriend, right? Whatever. 1 week later, not only did you lose the salah and did you lose the masjid, no, now you're not only back to square one, you're less. You fell behind. And so what shaitan tries to do is he comes to you when you're feeling low and he says, look, you're low anyway. You might as well do this as well. Go ahead and do this, and do this, and do this, and do this. And Imam Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah, he said that the greatest punishment for a sin is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows you to sin again. Because you start to feel al-bu'd, you start to feel distance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you go further and further and further away. So even if I'm not feeling too motivated towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, still, I'm not going to let myself fall into haram. And the third one is that he still has a shawq, he still has the longing to get back to the voluntary deeds, to the nawafil, to the good things. He still has that desire that, maybe today I'm not going to do as much as I used to do, but at the same time I'm going to work at it. Let me readjust my goals and let me see how to get back at it while I keep my fard and I avoid the haram, and I still long for the sunnahs and for the nawafil and the voluntary things. That's the fatra, that's the low point of the believer.
預言者ムハンマド様がすべてのものには頂点があると、その最高潮があると言われていると同時に、すべてのものには不調期があると、その落ち込む時があるというふうに言われているのも確かです。例えばですので、その落ち込んだ時こそが信徒の進化が問われる時とも言えるわけです。絶好調な時、ラマダンの時に皆がアッラーに立ち返る時期、皆がイバダに信仰行為に励んで、その雰囲気があってあれこれとやりやすくなる時期に、自分の信仰もまた絶好調を感じる、好調だということを感じるのは誰でもよくあることでしょう。そうした時に良いことをたくさんいつも以上にするのはたやすいことですが、肝心なのはどうも調子が良くない、不調な時、落ち込んでいる時にどうするか、そこでこそ信徒の進化が問われると言っても過言ではないわけです。また学者先生たちによれば、信徒が落ち込んだ時っていうのは、その人が信徒であって、先ほどお話ししたように信仰の外に出ない限り3つの基本は守り続けるというわけです。一つは義務行為、義務の行いは断じて守り続けること。義務の行いは断じて守り続けること。例えば皆さん、今日は気分が乗らないから仕事には行かないっていうようなことは言いませんよねと。今日はその気にならないから仕事には行かない、調子悪いから行かないってことは言えません。なぜって生活がかかってるから。それと同じように私たちの信仰、精神、心にとっても同じことが言えるわけです。それ義務、アンラに課せられていることは、たとえそれが絶不調の時であれ決して手放さない。2つ目はハラム、禁じられていることには近寄らない、禁じられていることはしない、触らない、触れない、近寄らないと。特に大罪、大きな罪とみなされるものは当たり前のことです。よく耳にする話としては、特に若者に多い傾向とされますけれども、それまで、あまり熱心でなかった遊びほうけていた人がひとたび宗教に、信仰に目覚めると熱病のごとくものすごい熱心な様子を、素振りを見せ、それこそ姿形から、熱心さを発揮するわけですけども、見せるようになるわけですけども、1週間後にはその片鱗はおろか、もうサラームしないどころか、お酒を飲んでいたりですとか、結婚前の異性行為をしたりですとか、あらぬことをしている。つまり一歩前進したどころか2歩3歩後退してしまった、元の木阿弥でなんかない方が良かった方にまで変えてしまう、そんな傾向がまま見られます。そうではなくて、たとえどんなに不調な時であれ、信とたるものはハラム、すべきでないことはしない。3つ目はあの頃に戻りたいと。あの好調だった頃、絶好調だった頃に戻りたい。どうにかしてあの頃を取り戻したいと。あの頃の私の自分の状態を取り戻したい。そういう気持ちを、そういう憧れを、思いを持ち続けることだと言います。つまり義務の行いは決して手放さない、守り続けるということ。そしてハラームは避け続ける。そして良かった頃に戻りたいという、取り戻したいという気持ちを持ち続ける。それが不調な時の信徒の状態だということです。